start by introducing Tami. So Tami Thompson is the Regulatory Affairs Manager for the Washington State Department of Health. She has over 25 years of experience in management and consultative experience in the field of regulatory reform. In 2008, she was appointed the department's Regulatory Affairs Manager. Prior to this, she drafted rules for the Department of Health's Emergency Medical Services and Trauma Program, and developed and coordinated statewide rules and legislative activities for healthcare professionals. She is a graduate of Central Washington University with a bachelor's degree in business administration. Tami is an absolute legend to work with, and a total font of knowledge when it comes to all things rulemaking. Tami, very grateful to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I thought we could start by maybe setting the scene and contextualizing your role at the Department of Health. Most government agencies have a rulemaking coordinator or regulatory affairs manager, but I think not everyone understands how complex the role is. So could you start by describing your role at DOH and how you work in the rulemaking process?
Sure. So I'm for Department of Health. I manage all of our rulemaking activities for rules that fall under the authority of the department, and we also have 17 independent boards and commission health profession boards and commissions, and then we also have our state board of health, and so I help manage all of the rulemaking activities for all of those programs, professions, facilities, everything that we regulate in the state of Washington. My role is to make sure that all of our rules are clear, concise. Do we meet all the legislative, legal requirements? Are we processing rules under the legal requirements that we are? And it's my job to make sure that everything that comes out of the Department of Health has the same look, feel, it's been through the same process. So maybe you hold a license in Washington under multiple professions. It's the process is very clear to you. You understand what it is, even if you are a paramedic, but you also are a nurse. To get both of those licenses, you understand how that process works.
So there's the dual track of making sure that as a citizen in Washington State, it's clear and easy to navigate Washington Department of Health's regulations and what it means to comply with them. But there's also the other parallel, which is making sure that everything is up to code, literally, when it comes to the Administrative Procedures Act in the state.
Yes. So it's working with staff to ensure that, again, did we hit all the marks, and how do you do that? You create processes, and so we have a lot of processes. We have a huge process that makes sure that we walk everybody through the same process, and that all the boxes are checked, and we've hit all of those necessary requirements.
I know we didn't prep on this question before, but I actually am curious. When you started the rulemaking coordinator role, how did you learn about all of the steps involved in a rulemaking process? Was it trial by fire, or was there a guide in Washington State?
Well, and so a lot of us have to follow, a lot of the state agencies, we all follow the Administrative Procedures Act, right? But it's not real clearly spelled out. So each agency has their own process. And when I first started, there was a gentleman that I worked under, and he understood the process, and so I learned from him. And then just over the course of the years, and the more exposure you get, how things change, you learn to adapt. You learn to just be super flexible. There are things that we do now that we never did before, and it's only because we've learned from our mistakes. We've learned from other people what they've done, and we went, oh, that's a great idea. So it's a learning process. And I recently just hired a new staff person to work with me, and it's hard to figure out how to teach that person where it all starts. Yeah. And so it's probably about documenting and creating manuals, right, to kind of walk you through. And then you get so in the weeds, but you're not going to catch everything. It's trial by error. It's learn from experience.
Yeah, we meet with so many state agencies, not just in Washington, but across the US, that of course are following their state's APA process. But every agency has like their own flavor and internal business processes for how they have to navigate the rulemakings and policies through, different workflows, different stakeholders. And a lot of it can be like locked up in institutional knowledge among a few people. And if they leave or someone new starts, it can be really hard to onboard them, like you said, and get them up to speed on how this particular agency does rulemaking or creates policy.
And that's one of the things I liked about Esper. We were able to document our process in a system, and everybody has exposure to it. Everybody understands it's a step-by-step process. You just follow the tasks, and that's the process. And I think that the great thing about it is where we are one of the largest regulatory agencies in the state of Washington, and we do a lot of cost benefit analyses based on our work and what we do. Some of the other agencies aren't required to do that, so their process will look a little bit different. And then I was just talking to another agency yesterday, and they do a lot of emergency rules. Emergency rules are very different than what we did, so their process would look even different than ours. And so it's this system allows us to set up the process that works for your agency, and so excited to get my new staff person in there a little bit more and walking her through the steps, because it will help me explain to her what the process is.
Yeah. Maybe we could, go a little bit deeper and talk about rulemaking and the process at DOH. How many rulemakings are you doing per year? Are they mostly emergency or amendments? How many people are typically involved in the rulemaking process at your agency? Does it differ based on the type of rulemaking you're working on? And how do you corral everyone?
Sure. So we are very process oriented, and that's how we keep track of everything. We're currently working on about 110 rule projects right now. And those are like standard. We have four processes that we potentially can use for any one rulemaking. Just depends on the criteria of that rulemaking. We have a standard rulemaking, we have an expedited, we have an exception, and which are shorter processes. They're just a spin-off of the standard. And then we have an emergency process that when we have to do something immediately and it's very short-lived. So that 110 projects are those projects that are pretty solid in that standard rulemaking. And then just over the course of the year, we probably have something like 30 bills that pass this year that will require rulemaking. And then we'll get emergency rules that'll pop up, and we'll get other things that will come up that will be brought to our attention that need to be dealt with quickly. Our agency is split up into about 4 divisions, and every division has their book of business, whether it's healthcare providers and facilities, environmental, more of the people, the health part of it for like our WIC programs. And then we also have our data-driven division. And so in the biggest scheme of things, there's probably 5 people that touch a rule project before it's adopted. There's 3 of us roughly that probably touch every rule project. So every rule in the Department of Health has to be reviewed and approved by our Secretary of Health or their designee. I look at everything to make sure it's clear, concise, and meets all the standards. And then we have an economist that looks at all of those rules that require a cost benefit analysis. Then you get down into the division, and each division has at least two people that have reviewed the project before it gets to my level for final review and approval. Some of our divisions are bigger, they have lots more layers, and so they have a lot more people reviewing, and some of our divisions are very small, and so there's less people to touch on it. So everybody kind of does things a little bit differently, but it's still the same process. It's just how many people had to look at it, and how big and extensive the project is, and did it cross over divisions? And if it crosses divisions, we have even more people that need to coordinate.
Yeah, I imagine with 110 rulemakings going on right now and more up the pipeline and all of the stakeholders involved, you're pretty busy.
It's very busy.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we could talk a little bit about the system you had in place before Esper and what kind of prompted the move to modernize. I know that you had a system in place before. Can you talk about how it was or wasn't working for you and what ultimately prompted the change?
Sure. So a lot of us in the state of Washington, we've just like used Excel spreadsheets to track our projects, right? And as an agency, as we grew, we determined that we needed to build a system so that we could go more electronic. Everything was done hard copy before that. So we built our own internal system. Our internal IT staff built our special little project. We called it the rules management system to review and approve projects. And it was amazing, right? It was efficient. It got paper off the desks. We could track things. We knew where they were going. But as we grew as an agency and technology changed, our system that was built in 2007 became antiquated and couldn't keep pace with all of the changes to Word documents, to Excel documents, to just the fact that we had so much going on and there were so many new things that you could do. We in our old system, we couldn't collaborate together on documents. So you were providing comments, but they were in a list and then people had to go back and fix them. And so it took us a while to convince our leadership that we needed something new, because in their eyes, everything just kept getting approved. Everything kept moving. But as we got bogged down, it became, and I would say COVID blew up our system a little bit with all the
the health
emergency
department
rules,
too,
right?
I'm sure.
And so there was really a push to become more efficient and to become more organized. And when you start getting public records requests and you have stuff saved. So in our old system, we had a system, but we couldn't archive. So we had to move all of our files into a shared drive. So we had them all in one place. And then to collaborate, we used SharePoint, and then people were sending emails. And so we had stuff everywhere. And when there was a public records request, we're like, it took us forever to like, okay, did we get all the documents? And so I'm like, we can't sustain this. And especially as we kept growing, I'm like, if I get hit by a bus, what are we going to do? And so I was like, we have some issues here.
Yeah.
So when funding became available, we had seen this program, Esper. It had been introduced to us before COVID. And I was like, I told my leadership, I said, if the governor's office is on board, we're there. Like this solves like half of our problems. I don't even care. It's better than what we have. Then COVID hit. And so after COVID, I'm like, we've got to do something. And so they kind of gave me the half green light to start looking. And so I went back to Esper and I did do some searches of some other programs. But Esper was the one that kind of hit the majority of our marks. And because you guys were a little bit still in your infancy, the conversations and the things that where you want to grow, you were seeing where we wanted to grow. And so it was really good teamwork, because the system does what we need it to do. And then we can still get the things that it doesn't totally do for us, but we know that you guys will get us there because the requests are coming. And so, so it was a good move for us.
Well, I'm very happy to hear this, naturally. But I think you just touched on so much, which is the first thing you mentioned of like, you had a homebrewed system, which so many agencies we meet with have a homebrewed solution that was built in the early 2000s. And it's kind of clunky and doesn't really work. But, their IT team built it. And so there's like a little bit of defensiveness sometimes of like, well, we're not ready to let the system go. Even though it's not meeting our needs anymore. There's also the question of budget. Do we have money for this? That's a big one we can talk about. And then, inevitably with homebrewed solutions, they have to be updated, and that update comes at a cost or a reprioritization of other things for the IT staff. So whenever we hear someone with a homebrewed solution, we know that they're probably looking for something better or more, but they have to be able to justify the move away from it. And what you said around COVID and remote work, it was a big catalyst for so many government agencies, where the need to be able to collaborate online in real time, and have everything in the cloud, became like twofold, doubly so. Like everyone needed to have access to it. So I guess to share for the audience a little bit more about Esper's story, I started the company with my co-founder a little over 5 years ago. And I don't have a tech background, I won't lie, but I am kind of a policy nerd. And I was first exposed to how complicated the rulemaking and policymaking process can be back in 2016. I was working a lot with county health departments, and it became evident that there really was like no operating system for how agencies are creating and managing regulation and also policy. And we heard so many stories similar to Tami's around, we have a homebrewed solution, or everything is managed via a combination of Excel and SharePoint and Microsoft Word and lots of email and also hand filed documents. And we knew that there needed to be a better way, because the collaboration wasn't there for people that needed to happen. Tami, you just mentioned it around archiving and being able to access historical records. That's huge for so many of our customers, because they're constantly getting records requests or getting sued, whatever it may be. I know it's a touchy subject. And they need to be able to produce versions of regulations or policies from years past. There is the ease of onboarding someone new to an agency. How do you sort of like, envelop them into the processes and documents in a really easy way? So that was some of the impetus for starting Esper. And we're now a little over 5 years old. And the beauty of working with customers like Tami and the Washington Department of Health is they signed on when we were still, a younger company, and we're still a young company, and really played a hand in shaping our product and how it was developed. And one of the things that Tami's team really influenced us on was the configurability of our product. So it became, very obvious that while Washington Department of Health may have certain forms and workflows that are required of their agency, that may not necessarily extend to like Department of Fish and Wildlife, for example, or the Texas Commission for Environmental Quality. And so we needed to be able to have that system flexibility to create configured or customized workflows for a Department of Health, and also be able to do the same thing for an agency in Texas. So that was a big investment that we made after working with Tami. And that means that, you can have, very customized roles and permissions and privileges for your team, and have the system, be very specific to your needs. So I wanted to say thank you, Tami, for, being a guiding force there, because you have indelibly had an impact on our product roadmap.
Great, because I mean, it was for us. It was like, hey, can you do this? And you're like, I think we can. And so it's been a blessing, right? I mean, it's been very, very helpful that you can kind of just design. I mean, there's parameters. Don't get me wrong. Everybody has parameters. Programs have parameters, but it's been very easy for us to say, this is how we do our book of business. And we did try to scale down our process. It's like, it helped us. Just working with the Esper staff, it helped us think about, do we really need all of these steps? And I'm still, even in the system as I use it every day, all day long, my brain's still processing of things that I think we need to change. Like, I don't think we need this anymore. I think this is just an extra step, or I think this is too much. And what I love about the system is it's very easy for me to say, hey, is this super easy to take out? And I don't mean to put down my own IT staff, but our system was so old, and the person that developed it has moved on. And so the IT staff now that I work with, they're like, okay, I think I can figure this out, right? And so we're constantly like, I need the system to do X, and they're trying to figure it out, but the system was so old. And then there was other agencies that were asking, well, what about can we use something similar to you? And it's like, it's an inbred system, probably. I
Yeah.
don't know that we can share it, because I don't know how we would share it.
Yeah, it's fair point. And so we sort of like led up to, okay, it's time for DOH to make a change, and you chose Esper, but I know you evaluated other policy management tools as well. What were some of the most important factors that had to be right for DOH to move forward? What was like the critical gotta have it list?
Sure. So, so we had a big list, and we did not get everything on our list, and that's okay, because you know what, there's a lot of workarounds, and even though some of those things were part of our system, maybe we don't need it, but maybe we do. We're still working that out. A lot of the systems that I looked at they didn't have an archive option, and those of you that do rulemaking, you know, you have to be able to take your rule package, and when you're done with it, you tuck it away and you archive it, and you have to be able to go and retrieve it for public records. And so Esper makes that incredibly easy to do. It needed to be enterprise wide. It needed to be customizable, because we had a specific process that we needed to follow. And a lot of the programs that I looked at were more in the mindset of project management, but it was also more of, hey, I created this policy, I need to make sure all my employees read it and sign off on it. And so you can do that. But we also needed to be able to collaborate on our documents. And that's what we were really struggling with. We had documents, we would put them out on SharePoint, we would collaborate, and we'd have to bring them back into another system. And it was just a lot of extra steps. So that was huge. The system, I mean, the bonuses of the system, well, besides the fact, okay, so everybody wants to project manage, they all need to know where the project is. And this system allows us to know exactly where the project is, who's with it, where the hang up is. And it's usually with me, not gonna lie, but it's always with me, but it allows us to go and look at any one project. If you have a license to be in there, you can go and look at any one project and see where it is. That's huge. I'm not calling people or emailing people going, what's going on? I can just go and look. And then the bonus, I think, was and another selling point, and I haven't used it this much, but I know that the other staff have, is lots of times when we create rules, sometimes we go and look at what other states are doing. And so, especially when we're getting mixed messages from our interested parties and our customers and our communities, everybody wants something different. I'll say, well, what are other states doing, and how successful were they? And so this system, Esper, allows us in the system to do that research, to go look at other state agencies, laws and rules in one place. And so I think that was a huge bonus. That was, for some, that was like a selling point. They're like, we like this, the researchers.
Yeah, I'm sure. One of the things we hear a lot from people that we meet with is they're like, we love this system. We see its use case and applicability. I need to go round up people internally and figure out who needs to be in the room to make the decision, like you said, the researchers needed to have buy-in as well. And sometimes that can be overwhelming, especially if you're in a really big agency. It's like, okay, I need to meet with that person in this division. And then, it becomes a very big list. How did you go about that at DOH?
So I've been here a really long time, and I think there's just a lot of trust in what needs to be done. It's my ultimate responsibility to make sure that the agency has processes to get our job done, and to get our job done efficiently, and so that we don't get sued on process. And so it's getting buy off, and you start small, right? So like I introduced this to a smaller group, those that probably be using it more often than others, and you kind of get buy off, and then you just kind of put together your selling points of, here's all the reasons why. Efficiency was going to be huge for us, because I was going to lose my mind when we had things scattered so many different places, and they would come to me and I'm like, I really don't know where that is. Let me go check. And now people are saying, where are we with this? And I'm like, oh, I know exactly where we are in the process. I didn't realize, I promoted the fact of the efficiency, right? But I didn't realize how efficient, much more efficient on our end, the administrative part that this program would make us. And when you're a large agency, and if you can do demos that show, here's how we can consolidate and do things in one system and be more efficient, and as long as there's funding, I think that's it's a selling point in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you are giving the advice, like start small, get your core group of people that are going to be using it the most in the room, and, make sure they like it, and then, grow from there. Can you talk a little bit about what it looked like working with Esper to get the software off the ground and implement it in your agency? It wasn't a short process for DOH, especially because, as you mentioned, we were sort of building things for DOH as we were implementing. What did the change management look like for you?
Okay, it was scary. I'm not gonna lie. It was very scary. Because in my shop there's only two of us, and my one employee, she was getting ready to leave, and so she kind of helped me kind of start to get organized. But how it was, the process took longer than probably it needed to, and that was on our end. When you start when it's government, right? And you have to, like, where's the funding going to come from? And you have to get approval from this, and it has to be in that system, and you have to have a contract and a procurement. And I literally knew nothing about that. And I don't have any kind of dedicated administrative support staff. So I was trying to figure out all of that on top of keeping our rules moving and adopted and doing hearings and all of this. So it was a side job for me. And I had to make that decision. If you're going to do this, you're going to have, something's going to go to the side. But I worked a lot of weekends to make this happen. I think the hardest part was, and it's part of it's because I'm not good at this. It's envisioning what you wanted to do and then getting it on paper and outlining. It was like, okay, let's just outline our process. What is our process? And then communicating that to Esper staff. Once Esper staff got what we wanted to do, they flew through it. They were really good at articulating to me in terms that I could understand, okay, this is what we need from you. And having those one-on-one conversations, we met a lot. Every week or every other week or every month, whatever. It was like, here's your next task. And so I think our only big hook was when with some of our forms, and I don't even know what happened there. I honestly, there is no blame on anyone. I think it was a Microsoft thing. I think it was a DOH thing, and Esper figured it out. And it took us a while, and it was super frustrating, only because every time we thought we had it fixed, it was still broken. But here we are a few months down the road, and nothing stopped. And I think that was the other thing. I had made a promise to my staff and to my agency that I've watched other programs, other software programs that we've onboarded, and things have halted because of getting that. And I promised my staff and my agency that we wouldn't do that, because we can't afford to do that. Because every time I would go on vacation, we'd stop things, and it becomes a train wreck, right?
Yeah.
And so I was able to, on my end, to keep things moving, but we still kept testing things. And Esper and my code revisor's office was amazing. We file all of our forms and rules with them, and they were so flexible. It's about communication too. I communicated to them, this is what we're doing. If you start seeing things that I'm filing that are wrong, please let me know, because then we need to figure that out. And they were amazing. They would just communicate, hey, this isn't working. This is wrong. I can't put a stamp on this form, whatever it was. And then I would get back to Esper. And the amazing thing about the Esper staff is they were so responsive. within 24 hours, and usually within the same few hours, they were responding back, okay, we're looking at it, we're trying to figure this out, show me this, that, or whatever. And so I was in constant communication with them. And I think that, I mean, you feel like took a long time. I felt like we like zoomed right through it. I
Yeah,
think the
yeah, yeah.
stalling part was the paperwork part on our part. Otherwise, I'm like, look what we accomplished.
I know. I think it's actually like a reset of expectations. Because like I worked in the private sector before this, right? And I will do demos with folks, and they'll ask us, how long do you think it'll take to implement? And I'm like, well, like definitely less than a year, probably like and I'm like very apologetic about it. I'm like, maybe 3 to 6 months. It depends. We need to like scope this out. And people are like, oh, well, I thought it would take 2 years. And that's
Right?
like 2 years is horrifying to me. I'm like, absolutely not. It will be like in your hands. It'll be used like, bar none by the end of this year. But I think it's a reset of expectations, and internally, like we're on the same page. We don't like for things to halt. And we have the motto in our professional services team, like we're never going to be the blocker. So if we are blocking, we have to unblock as fast as possible.
Well, and I think the thing is too is yes, we purchased this off the shelf, right? This was not made in-house. We purchased something off the shelf, but it wasn't like we purchased something off the shelf, installed it on our computers, and away we went. We purchased something off the shelf, and then we modified it, specialized it, designed it, customized it to fit our needs. That takes time, because what you think your needs are, and then you start working it and you're like, nope, that can't work. And so you have to do that trial and error. And then there's the training piece. And I mean, it didn't take that long to get us going. I don't think. Like, I felt like in less than a year we had it all going.
Yeah, it's true. It was less than a year. Like I said, I think it might just be like a reset of expectations. Less than a year is actually not that long.
No.
Especially as I'm getting older, I'm finding. So I think we're gonna do maybe one more question, then open it up to audience Q&A. So since adopting Esper, what's been the biggest improvement in your rulemaking process? Did anything surprise you?
And this is kind of not fair for probably the bigger group, all my end users, all my super users. For me, and this is just because my employee left, and then I ended up doing her job and my job, right? And so I learned a lot of shuffling, and I was doing it before we got Esper. So she left in July, and then we kind of implemented Esper in September, and my head was maybe going to explode. But once we got into Esper, the efficiencies for me and our administrative efficiencies, it's like, oh, we're not saving documents all over the board and trying to find them. They're all in one place. So that was amazing to me. I think it's about being able to find stuff, right? Like, I mean, and that's kind of, yeah, if you have everything in one place in one file, you should be able to find everything. But I literally can go to one system and find all of our documents. We are on an agency right now that we have over 80 professions, and all of our 80 plus professions are doing rulemaking on health equity, continuing education.
Mhm.
And so they're all looking the same, but it's super easy for me to say, oh, I think I saw this. Is this really what we want it to say? I go open up another one. It's all in the same system. And I'm like, yep, it's easy. It's easy to search and find our projects. We've set up a naming convention right now because we couldn't divide up by divisions. Great. The naming convention is easy for me to find things. It's for me, it's efficiency, being able to find things and know where things are is the most amazing thing
Sounds
ever.
simple, but like truly revolutionary for a lot of people, especially if you're living in multiple systems.
Yes.
Well, cool. I think we'll save like the last 10 minutes for audience Q&A. So if you have questions, you can pop them into the Q&A box. I believe they're anonymous. I won't read your name unless you want me to. Maybe give people a few seconds to think of any questions that they might have. Oh, one raised hand. Shoot, I saw someone raise their hand, but I can't see who it is. Oh, wait, am I supposed to say your name? Do you want me to say your name? Seth. Okay. Does Esper serve all state departments and agencies? Great question.
Yeah.
So yes, actually investors ask us this a lot. They're like, do you only work with departments of health or only environmental agencies? And the answer is like Esper is able to support any type of agency. We actually work with the New York Police Department, and they're a public safety organization. So flexible to any type of agency. And as Tami mentioned, the software is off the shelf, right? But it's configured to your business process. So if you were to purchase Esper, you would sit down, map out all of your workflows. What type of policies do you have? Who touches each one of those policies? How often are you reviewing them? And then we configure that inside of the software for you. So it's off the shelf and then configured for you. Hopefully that answers it.
I'm just going to add too. So this is a blessing and not so much sometimes. So with it being a cloud-based system, I don't have to be logged in to my servers and whatever at work in order to take care of a situation, look at something, process, approve something, whatever. So unfortunately, like if I'm on the road somewhere, as long as I have my computer, all I have to do is go to esper.com and log into my account. And so I literally can be anywhere. So if you are an agency and you have staff that are out on the road a lot, that they need to be entering or doing something in this system, it's a huge advantage. I can say I can be on vacation and take the 5 minutes if I have to log in and approve something and move on. And I can do it from my personal computer. I don't have to have my work stuff with me. So it provides, and that's bad. I know that sounds really bad, but it provides a lot. My point is it provides a lot of flexibility in those aspects.
Yeah. Tami, it sounds like you and I take similar vacations. All right, people were not shy with questions. Awesome. Next one from Chantel. Hi, Chantel, also in Washington State. Does Esper have any demo videos available, or would DOH be willing to demo how they're using their customized product? We do have demo videos available, but we'd love to share a demo with you live. And I suspect Tami would be open to sharing with you how it's working for her.
Sure. So my recommendation would be to first schedule with Esper staff and have them do their demo, because it's a great introduction. And then please feel free to contact me, and then we can show you a little bit about how our system is set up. Our system is pretty elaborate, but you can see how we do things. Absolutely.
Cool. And Tami, if it's all right with you, I might connect you with Chantel after this.
Yeah.
Her info. All right, cool. Next question. Systems are only as good as people who comply with them. True. Does the system come with any reminders or alerts to compel movement on a project or a rule? Yes. And this is something we're like building on actively right now. But you can configure notifications to come to your email, to your calendar, in the actual product itself. But once something is assigned to someone, they're notified. If you need to be nudged on it, notified. All of that is in software.
The blessing of this system is, in our old system, we actually had to have a person physically in the system move our project. They had to monitor it every time it was approved by somebody. It was like, oh, okay, now it needs to be reassigned to the next set of people, right? And so manually happening, this system automatically does that. You get alerts. I had to turn off my alerts, right? Like I couldn't do alerts every time somebody assigned something to me. I couldn't do it. So I now summarize mine into, I get a daily alert that kind of summarizes, here's everything, all the activity that involves you has been done on this day. So yeah, there's a lot, and there's always room for improvement. We're always sending the Esper staff, hey, here's some ideas. What do you guys think about this? This is what we found that might be helpful. And we're always curious to see what other state agencies or states are asking too.
Yeah. Definitely, you can configure your alerts if you want daily or weekly summary if you're not in the system as much. So again, configurability, we joke, is like the appropriate C word at Esper. All right, we've got a few questions around price, which love that you're asking this question. The answer is like we usually price based on like complexity and also tiered number of users. So 1 to 10, 11 to 25, 26, so on and so forth. We would want to meet with you and talk about your use case before we committed to a number, of course. But we have some agencies paying around the range of 75,000 a year. And then other massive agencies paying $1 million. So big range, right? And we would just want to meet with you and understand what you're looking for exactly. The thing that I'll note that's unique about our pricing is we understand that your agency may have a core group of 15 to 20 people that are using the software regularly for rulemaking, but you may also have like 3,000 people that need read-only access or like occasional access. So we're able to distinguish between those types of licenses, people that are what we call core users, full access, and then also the ones that are more view-only, read-only. So obviously people that are only read-only wouldn't be charged as much for it. But if you want to talk more about pricing, I would just recommend getting in touch. I'll put my contact information in the chat box, so anyone who's curious can reach out. Okay, this is such a great and unique product. Do you have competitors, or is Esper the best-in-class solution? As the CEO of Esper, I believe it's my duty to say we're the best-in-class solution. I sincerely believe that. We do have a couple of competitors. The biggest one would be a company called Power DMS. They work primarily with law enforcement and public safety organizations for what Tami described earlier, which is being able to publish out policies and have their staff like legally attest to them, which Esper can do as well. But the collaborative and research elements aren't the same. So that's the one that I would call out in case you're doing market research. Next question. Could this platform help with streamlining professional licensing applications as well as regulations? We don't support the professional licensing application use case. We're really around regulation and also other types of policy. We have a policy product. So if you've got employee handbooks, protocols, guides, memos, we support the creation and management of that as well. But we do not support professional licensing applications. Tami, do you use anything at DOH for that today?
You have a whole nother system for that.
Okay.
It's like a huge other system.
You're like over there.
It's over there.
Another really great question. What were your challenges? Tami, I'll let you answer this one. What were your challenges in getting buy-in and support from both the agency rules staff and management? How did you overcome these challenges?
Sure. So, funding, I think funding is always your biggest challenge. So we were trying to get a new system since like 2011, I think. And like every time we would go forward, we're like, this is all the reasons, and everybody would agree, but there was no funding. And so there was a constant, well, can we do this in-house? And I'm like, we've already been down that road. And we don't have the staff to do that. We don't have the IT staff to do that. And so once the money became available, it was better. I would say all of my people that work with me on our rulemaking teams were super frustrated with the system and what we had. And so at least verbally to me, they were anxious to get something new. But change is hard, right? As much as you want it, I think change is hard. And some people, and this is just how it is, some people embrace it and move on and do amazing things with Esper. And some people are still a little more reluctant. But I think if you can show them like all the benefits that a new system would help them and how it make their job easier, then that's the selling point. And we had such a cluster of what was going on, and people were getting frustrated, and they were getting frustrated partially with me because everything was lost and I couldn't find things, and I wasn't keeping up with my deadlines. And now they're just frustrated with me because I can't keep up with my deadlines. But that's because it's been one person doing a bunch of stuff. But at least we know where it is, right? And they're giving me alerts. Hey, I need this done. And so I think it's the funding, and then showing all the great things that this new system will do that our old system can't do is the selling points.
And I would add to that in that we'll help you calculate ROI if you need that. If you need 10 demos, we'll get you 10 demos of Esper to whoever needs to see it. I know we did a lot of demos at DOH as well, but that's because truly, it's a big agency. A lot of people need to be involved in the decision-making process. So I would say like we're your allies here in helping you get information.
And we did demos for different users. So we did demos for those originators that were getting in the system and adding projects. We did demos for those people that truly are just reviewing and approving, checking boxes. So and everything in between. So we did a lot of different demos at the different user levels, and because we have 4 different levels of users, types of users. And so we did a lot of demos for those different.
That's a great like nuanced piece of advice is when we're doing, there inevitably with any agency we work with, we're doing multiple rounds of demos internally before any decision is made. But typically we're meeting with people that are going to be using the software every day first. And then, maybe do a few rounds of demos, with rulemaking staff, with subject matter experts, general counsel. And then eventually there will be like a leadership meeting, right? But we've all been primed and prepped before we go into that leadership meeting with like soft buy-in from other groups.
And you need to get your IT staff on board.
Yes.
IT staff, get your IT staff. Like when your IT staff goes, go for it. Like then I'm hands off, then there's a win. Because for them, it's not one more system that they're trying to manage, right? Also, and they're like, yep, you need to call them if there's something broken.
Yeah, that's a great point, IT staff. Couple more questions, then I think we'll wrap. Let's see. Can you use for permitting or enforcement tracking? No. It is truly policy and regulation management, so collaboration, project management, document control, all of that stuff. If you are looking for an integration into your permitting or enforcement tracking system, we are able to do that. If you wanted to connect, for example, like enforcement data to policy, that's something we could help facilitate. But we are not a permitting or enforcement tracking company yet. Maybe we'll see. Last question, does Esper allow for document collaboration across agencies or with outside entities? Yes, we do. So it's flexible. We work in some states agency by agency. So there are a couple agencies in Washington state that use Esper. In Tennessee, we're statewide, same in Montana, and a few other states. So if you have, outside stakeholders that need limited read-only access, we can allow and provision for that. If there is an attorney general's office that needs to review a rulemaking before it's submitted, we can provision accounts for them as well. I mean, in all honesty, it's our goal to make this process easier for you. So if you need a couple of licenses for specific people outside of your agency, we support the collaboration and the provision of licenses for that. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, 1:50 on the dot. I'm going to put my contact info here in the chat box. It's just my name at esper.com. If anyone wants to reach out, let me put it in the entire group. With more questions that we weren't able to get to today. Chantel, I'll put you in touch with Tami, just in case you guys want to chat after this. And really grateful for you taking a little bit of time out of your Wednesday to hang out with us. And Tami, thank you so much for coming on here and being just absolutely awesome to work with.
Great. Thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning into this and listening to me. And I always am very thankful to the Esper staff. They're super helpful. And when I was asked to do this, I'm like, absolutely. I would love to give back to the Esper staff because you guys have done so much for us.
Thank you. We have a few Esper staff in the audience that are here cheering you on.
Yay.
All right. Have a great Wednesday, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.